Hello, it's Mark from Snooker Crazy. I've been asked to show how to put a laminated tip on, so we're going to give that a go today. I've chosen a Talisman tip, so for those of you guys that are familiar with them, it comes in a box like that. It's going to be a 10mm tip, put onto something like a 9.5mm ferrule, hopefully. So first thing we're going to do is protect the cue, as we always do. You can see this tip's a bit worn down, and the ferrule could do with a bit of a clean as well, I think. So what we'll start by doing is putting the masking tape, which is quite a non-tacky type, so we don't have too much to clean up afterwards. Stick that about 1mm down from the top of the ferrule. Generally like to go down about 2 or 3 layers, I would say 3 on this one. Give us a nice bit of protection. I use a scalpel because it's nice and sharp. To remove the tip, just put a gentle score mark just above the ferrule. Be careful not to damage it, and that way it should give you a bit of a good guide, really. Just gently take that off. And you can see I'll just use about 3/4 of the way up, about there. That's what I like to cut with. So just gently do it, trying to make sure you don't create any damage. As it's a laminated tip that I'm taking off, you tend to get a few layers on that. I think from memory a Talisman's got around 11. Alright, just trying to take the glue off. It's come off quite easy. So just a little bit at a time. I tend to check the flatness of the ferrule by putting the back end of the knife up to some light and checking. It's not too bad. Now I'll just gently scrape any bits of glue off, being careful not to damage the ferrule. So really gently. Yeah, that's come off pretty good actually. If you can see that, that's a little bit of a thicker ferrule, this one, but nice flat surface. Put the cue aside. Now just before we put the tip on, what I'd like to say with the Talismans, which are one of the most popular tips out there, lots of problems with this little bit in the centre. I'll see if I can focus you in a little bit. There you go. You can just about see a small bobble in there. Where you get the different layers of leather, and you're obviously sanding off the bits towards the edge. There you go. It will leave you that bit in the middle. That bit in the middle is actually one of the layers, but obviously you've lost these bits around the side. What you want to do when you sand this tip down is to make sure you don't have that bobble in the middle, because there's quite a lot of examples of them popping out. People think it's a fault with the tip. It's just where you've left that small piece of layer in, and then it will come off. What you want to do is just slightly go into the next layer of leather, and it will leave a very small ring around the outside, and then the rest of that centre bit should be one big bit of a layer. But yeah, never leave the small bit, because that's an absolute pain. Occasionally you get them delaminating, which is just the layers coming apart. It is rare though, to be honest, so we'll crack on. Right. Let's get you a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. There you go. Now, if you look at the base of a Talisman, you've got some writing on there. There you go. And all we're going to do is sand that base off so it's nice and flat. Not too thick a tip, but just about right. Nice shape to these. So let's go and do that. And all we're going to do is a figure of 8. So 2 fingers gently. Just do a figure of 8. I've got 80 grit sandpaper there. I'm just skimming it. Don't go too mad at it. I'm going to try and keep it as level as you can. Just checking it occasionally. It's nearly done. So I'm just skimming it. Figure of 8, just make sure that you're taking an even amount off all the time. Just to check that you're level. See that? There you go. That didn't take much at all. That's fine. As you say, we haven't had to go too mad at this. Good stuff. Let's focus back out again. Right. Now whilst the tip is off, so the ferrule wasn't particularly great, so I think what we'll do is we'll just take advantage of the time just to give that a little bit of a clean. What I generally do is just take off enough of the masking tape to see the base of the ferrule. You're not going to damage the tip doing this. Put the 3 fingers just over the top and just gently turn. It's 10,000 grit steel wool, so don't use the sort of heavier grit stuff. This is very, very light. It should just restore that shine without too much effort. Yeah, see, that's not too bad. And that hasn't taken a lot of effort to do that. What I'm going to do is just quickly protect that again before we put the tip on. Obviously you don't want glue running down the shaft. Right. Now I tend to pop a little bit personally onto the tip. Don't go mad with it. So you just about probably see going on there. Just take it out to the edge. So you don't want lots of glue, just enough to cover the surface, but not enough that when you push the tip onto the ferrule it's going to run down the ferrule, because then you've got to clean it up afterwards anyway. And then I'll pop a little bit in the centre of the ferrule and make sure that it's all the way around. So carefully drop it on, and personally I just centre my 2 fingers. Sometimes you'll get, as it's just done there, I'll just touch your finger. As it goes off, just get it central. Push it down a bit. It's good. Right. Now what I do now is I turn mine upside down. I don't use a tip compressor, if you like, and I just pop it on to a little bit of tile I've got, and just put a little bit of pressure on it for about a minute. So don't push it hard enough or it's going to bend the shaft. Just needs just a slight compression like this, but around about a minute with super glue. So you can use the gel type or the liquid type, makes no difference. The gel just gives you a little bit longer, as I've said in other videos. What I will say is keep an eye on your ferrule size, because when cues are bought, people think they've got a 9.75mm ferrule, so they're getting themselves a 10mm tip, and over time they clean the ferrule and clean it and they get the sandpaper on it and don't always quite do it right, and then before they know it they've actually got something like a 9.2mm ferrule, or 9.2mm ferrule at the top, 9.75 at the bottom, and you end up with a 9.2mm tip. So if you want a 9.75mm tip, then make sure that you keep your ferrule going. We'll check this one in a second just to see. We can't be too far off now, so we'll just spin that up and have a look. Right. Just take that masking tape off. check these sizes. Check it so you can see it, I think. That'd be good. Right. If I measure from the top, you've got around about a 9.6 millimetre ferrule's got on there at the beginning. If we go to the end, yeah, even with a bit of glue on there, we can see that it's already lost 0.3 of a millimetre. So you need to keep an eye on that, because obviously when that goes down even further, what you think you're playing with, you're probably not. And if that's the case, then you need to change that ferrule over. So even on this one, it's slightly smaller than what we think. Right, let's see if we can make this easy for you to see. Right, obviously a little bit difficult for me. Let's try and keep it in the picture. I tend to get it in about the top third of these, and then I just turn it just like a pencil sharpener. Try and give you a good idea. Just a little bit at a time. Probably just about see that. It's a tiny amount coming off. And I just keep spinning and spinning in line with the ferrule. I see it just building up. Don't get a lot off at a time. It's not a problem. Just like the fact that it's actually nice and even. So no rush. It always seems like it's taking forever, but the reality is it's only a few minutes. Generally I put a new blade in each time, so I'd advise you to do the same. For the price of a blade, it makes life easier, and considering how much snooker you're going to play with your tip, why not? Alright, starting to get towards the end of that. Now the laminators are quite hard, so you certainly want a sharp blade, and to keep checking that you're taking it off even all the way around. I'm just checking this against the light just a little bit more. You've got to decide really what sort of shape you can have on this. I'm going to go for a very standard shape just for the sake of the video. And what I want to do is to try and show you how to get rid of that bobble that you've got in the middle of the talisman, so it stays on there. Yeah, it's not too bad. Of course, when you start to, to sand again, there's a good chance you're going to damage your ferrule, so after I've initially cut the edges of the tip, I do like to just protect that ferrule again if I can, for the sake of a few seconds. You can see already we've not got a bad shape on that. There you go. So they actually come well shaped. I just want to take a layer off of that. See how we get on getting rid of that bubble. Now again, you'll probably get advice just to start with a lot finer grades of sandpaper, but I like to skim mine personally, so I've got 80 grit, which again is a lot, but I think it's quite good for the laminators, that's for sure. Now he's going to be a little bit harder to sand than something like an Elk Master or a Blue Diamond, so you're going to have to be a little bit more patient. There you go. I'll give you a better view. You can see the angle I'm doing this at. It's not going to take loads off, but it's just something like a talisman, because they are pretty hard, but you can already see that the bobble's getting small. I think you can just about see that. So we're obviously getting through the last bit of that leather layer. And as we do, we should start to get a ring come for the next layer, but if we can lose that one in the centre, then you've got most of a layer left on the top. So get on with it. You find some people, when they do a talisman, they just basically stick it on there, take a skim off the top, and they're ready to play. I tend to like mine a little bit lower than that. That's how I get the feel, if you like. So I might take anything up to a third to a half off it. It means the tip doesn't last as long, but obviously we all like it in a different way. That's mine. So I'll probably take a layer or two off. So if there's 11 layers on there, then you've certainly got a few to play with. Yeah, I think just about there. So you want to make sure that bobble in the centre is quite a way out towards the edge. If you see now on this one, you may be able to see it, but the ring, I don't know if you can quite see that, but there's not a bobble in the centre anymore. The ring's moved sort of about halfway to just a little bit further out. That way we know it's not going to fall out after a couple of weeks. So I'll just take a little bit off of the ferrule again. We'll give that a last little trim. Make sure we got a decent shape for when you're looking down at the tip. So most of these things are a personal preference, so you've got to be happy with it yourself. And when you are, you're ready to go. But we can obviously all be a bit fussy with tips. I certainly am. As you can see, what it does do, the talisman, it does enable you to take a nice clean line off. What I generally finish up with is about 1,000 grit paper. This one's actually 3,000, but so normally just like to take the hairs off. There's not going to be many on here, but I just like to make sure if there's anything there, I can just finish it. That's it, nice and sharp. Let's go over this once again over the ferrule and just do the edges of the tip and the ferrule just by a gentle spin. Don't go mad, just so we barely had a minute on that tip and it's fine when it went to sticking. So you can see that it doesn't take an awful lot of effort. Yeah, just a little bit left on there. Any glue residue, obviously, try and lose that. Get any stubborn marks, you can use obviously a little bit of that 1,000 grit paper you've got. So just a gentle spin as you go. Just a little bit of glue got in there, I think. You can see if you use a sandpaper or a steel wool that's a little bit more aggressive, you can see how you can very easily, just with a few tip changes, lose the size of your tip, which is not ideal then. There you go. I've got a little bit of a 3000 grit strip. I'm going to put that onto a little bit of glue that's in there, and I'm going to give that a go. So if you've got any deep scratches, obviously use a different grade of sandpaper, but the best thing is to avoid scratching it whatsoever, and that way you haven't got anything to repair, so obviously be as careful as you can. Right, that's pretty good. If I can do this with my eyes as bad as they are, then I'm sure you can see better lines on the tip. There's no doubt about that. Right. You run your fingers up and down. Sometimes there's a little bit of tack there, but I generally use a baby wipe if I'm honest. They're pretty good for that. Just gently get any muck off. Keep it away from your tip if you can. There you go. And then I'll do it down to just above the splices, and that way the shaft is nice and clean, but you don't discolour any of the splice work if you've used something else on there to keep it nice and shiny. There you go, not too much muck, pretty clean cue this one, which is good. Pretty good. Now, as much as that's a pretty thin tip as regards height, that is how I actually like it. So still a couple of little scratches on that ferrule, which is pretty damaged. I'll get them off after the video, but you get a general idea. That's the height I like. Obviously you'll have something specific to yourself. So I hope that's given you a good idea, and if you get any questions, obviously come in and we'll do our best to answer that. But you can see it's not too difficult. It's actually quite an easy thing to do on a laminated. They're pretty hard. As long as you've got a sharp knife, should be alright. So Let us know if you've got any questions, and see you on the next video.